Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low. On February 18, ACT policing raided a music venue in Canberra, evacuated patrons, and declared the place a crime scene. It was because of so-called art hanging on the wall. This is exactly what many have warned would happen when the government rushed through the new hate speech laws. Legal experts warned it, civil libertarians warned it, and I warned it too, because after more than a decade in policing, I know how vague powers get used in the real world. They don't stay confined to extremists, they expand. They get weaponized, and eventually they land on ordinary people who simply hold the wrong political view. So the hypothetical became reality. You might think, well, if someone displayed a hate symbol, surely they intended to spread hate. But that is the trap. Under these laws, you don't need intent. As I said, you only need to be reckless about whether a symbol was displayed. And that threshold is dangerously low. So the posters in question were anti-fascist satire, mocking world leaders as dictators, not promoting them. But the police didn't care about context. They saw a symbol, ticked a box, and shut a business down. That's what happens when legislation is drafted broadly and enforced mechanically. So just to be absolutely clear, I do not like the posters, nor do I agree with the messaging in the posters. But the government says this is about safety. But when police are shutting down gigs to assess the artistic merit of a poster, you have to ask whether the government has handed itself a weapon it doesn't know how to control. So here's the incident. We have a Canberra venue called Descent Cafe and Bar. It was forced to close and cancel a gig after police seized 5 posters following a complaint about possible hate imagery. Police attended. They've asked the owner to remove the posters. And when he declined, which he is legally entitled to do, they escalated. A crime scene was declared. The venue was shut down. The posters were seized. ACT policing later said 5 posters were subsequently seized and will be considered under recently enacted Commonwealth legislation regarding hate symbols. They also confirmed they are seeking legal advice on whether the posters are even illegal. Did you hear that? So as someone who spent more than a decade in policing, let me translate that little statement for you. What they're saying is they weren't sure it was a crime, but they acted as if it was. That statement alone should terrify you. It terrifies me. The political reaction has been fierce. The Greens and several independents have condemned the action as worryingly Orwellian and a direct threat to free speech. They're now questioning whether the legislation was rushed and whether it's even workable. And honestly, they are right to ask, but they probably should have thought about this beforehand and questioned a lot more. So what the posters actually were. The posters depicted figures like Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, Vladimir Putin, Elon Musk in photoshopped Nazi-style uniforms. The artists, who are called the Grow Up Art Collective, said it was anti-fascist satire. The venue owner said the same. So again, I do not like the posters, nor do I agree with the message. However, we need free speech, and this kind of political commentary has existed for decades, whether I agree with it or not. But under these laws, context doesn't matter. Intent doesn't matter. Satire doesn't matter. The symbol is the offense, and that's the problem. So this is really a legal trap. Let's talk about the hidden mechanics of this law, because this is where the danger really lies. A defense is not a shield that stops police from entering your building. A defense is something you argue months later in court after you've been charged, your property has been seized, your business has been disrupted, and you've spent thousands on legal fees. To rely on the artistic purpose defense, the display must be genuine and reasonable. And who decides what's genuine art? Art was always in the eye of the beholder. So, first, the police officer standing in your venue. Later, a court. So, you have to ask yourself, is it reasonable to display a swastika in a cafe window where a Jewish passerby might see it and feel threatened, even if the intent is satire? That is exactly the question the prosecution will ask. And here's the irony. The artists used fascist imagery to criticize fascism, but the law doesn't care about ideology. It bans the symbol, not the meaning. So an anti-fascist mocking a leader they believe is a dictator is treated the same as a neo-Nazi promoting hate. So this law captures the satirist and the extremist alike and forces the satirist to hire a lawyer to explain the difference. So here's the policing reality. When police say they are seeking legal advice, that is code for we don't actually know if this is legal. But by that point, the venue is closed, the posters are gone, the gig is cancelled, the damage is done. Police operate on a risk-averse model. If they leave the posters up and it turns out to be a hate crime, then they've failed. If they seize them and it turns out to be art, they can return them later. So from a policing standpoint, seizure is the safest option. But from a civil liberties standpoint, that safe option is catastrophic. It means freedom of speech becomes secondary to administrative caution. Legal bodies warned this would happen. They warned police would struggle to distinguish between hate speech and commentary about hate speech. Not because police are stupid, but because police enforce the law, they don't interpret it. And when the law is vague, they take the safest path, as they always do. So the bigger picture in all this is that this law was born out of a real tragedy and a real rise in anti-Semitism, but it is now being applied in a way that targets political dissent and political communication. So the shutdown of the Dissent Cafe, I mean, the name says it all, proves that the safeguards in this legislation are not enough to prevent overreach. We've created a system where the symbol carries more legal weight than the intent or the ideology behind it. Police are still seeking legal advice, but the fact they needed advice after shutting down a business tells you everything you need to know about how confusing and poorly communicated these powers are. And if you think this won't affect you, think again. Next time, it might not be a cafe in Canberra. It might be a history teacher, a comedian, a Bible teaching pastor, or you sharing a meme in a group chat. All it takes is one complaint. That's all it takes. The government says this is about making Australia safer. But we have to ask ourselves, where do we draw the line between safety and just being silenced? And is this just about manipulation and control? As always, this is just my opinion. I'm Jay Fallon, and thank you for listening to The Slippery Slope.
They just fuel a desire that will take me higher. I'm on fire because nothing's gonna bring me down. Nothing's gonna bring me down. Nothing's gonna stop me now. No more deals to be done. No more nothing's gonna just focus on the goal. Nothing's gonna stop me now. Nothing's gonna hold me down. Got my eye on the prize. Gonna set it on